The loudest voice in your life right now isn't God's. It's your fear telling you that you're not enough. It's your past whispering that you'll never change. It's social media screaming that everyone else has it figured out while you're falling apart. But what if I told you that underneath all that noise, there's a voice that's been calling your name this entire time? A voice so powerful that when you finally hear it, every other voice becomes background static. The problem isn't that God stopped speaking. The problem is that you've been listening to everyone except Him. Right now, you're drowning in a symphony of voices. Your boss telling you that you're not working hard enough. Your family telling you what you should do with your life. Your friends giving you advice they wouldn't even follow themselves. And somewhere in the middle of all that chaos, you've forgotten the sound of the voice that matters most. The voice that spoke you into existence. The voice that said, "Let there be light," and there was light. In 1 Kings 19, Elijah was hiding in a cave, running from his enemies, listening to the voices of fear and defeat. And God showed up, but not in the way Elijah expected. There was a powerful wind that tore the mountains apart, but God wasn't in the wind. There was an earthquake that shook the ground, but God wasn't in the earthquake. There was a fire that burned everything in its path, but God wasn't in the fire. Then came a gentle whisper, and that's where God was. See, God doesn't need to shout to get your attention. He doesn't need to compete with the noise. His voice is so powerful that it can speak in a whisper and still move mountains. But here's what you need to understand. You can't hear a whisper if you're standing in the middle of a hurricane. You've been living in the hurricane of opinions, expectations, and other people's emergencies, and you wonder why you can't hear God's voice clearly. Every morning you wake up and immediately invite the world into your thoughts. You check your phone, you read the news, you scroll through social media, you let everyone else's voice flood your mind before you've even asked God what He wants to say to you today. And then you pray, "God, why can't I hear you?" While your mind is still buzzing with the noise of everyone else's agenda. Listen to me carefully. God's voice isn't competing with the noise. God's voice overcomes the noise, but you have to create space for it. Psalm 46:10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Not be busy and try to figure out if I'm God. Not be stressed and hope that I'm God. Be still. Stillness isn't just the absence of movement. Stillness is the presence of focus. When you're still, you're not just quiet, you're listening. Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to know. Your ability to hear God's voice is directly connected to your willingness to silence everyone else's voice. The devil can't stop God from speaking to you, but he can fill your life with so much noise that you can't hear what God is saying. He can convince you that everyone else's opinion matters more than God's truth. He can make you believe that the voices of fear and doubt are more reliable than the voice of faith and hope. But when you learn to silence the noise, something miraculous happens. You don't just hear God's voice, you start to recognize it. John 10:27 says, "My sheep listen to my voice. I know them and they follow me." Notice it doesn't say my sheep's trained to hear my voice. It says they listen to it. There's a difference between hearing and listening. Hearing is passive. Listening is active. When you listen to God's voice, you're not just waiting for Him to speak, you're expecting Him to speak. And when you expect to hear from God, you start to notice His voice everywhere, in the sermon that speaks directly to your situation, in the conversation with a friend who says exactly what you needed to hear, in the peace that comes over you when you're praying about a decision. But here's the key, you have to silence the noise first. That means turning off the notifications that are constantly pulling your attention in different directions. It means setting boundaries with people who speak chaos into your life. It means choosing to start your day with God's voice instead of the world's voice. When you wake up tomorrow, don't reach for your phone. Reach for your Bible. Don't check what everyone else is doing. Check what God is saying. Because when you prioritize God's voice over everyone else's voice, you're not just making a schedule change. You're making a life change. You're choosing to be led by the voice of the Good Shepherd instead of the voices of the wolves in sheep's clothing. You're choosing to be guided by the voice of wisdom instead of the voices of confusion. The voice that matters most isn't the loudest voice. It's the voice that speaks truth, peace, and purpose into your life. So stop listening to everyone else tell you who you are. Start listening to God tell you who you are. Stop listening to fear tell you what you can't do. Start listening to faith tell you what you can do. Stop listening to the world tell you what you need. Start listening to God tell you what you already have. Silence the noise. Hear the one voice that matters. Because when you do, you'll discover that God's voice doesn't just speak to you. God's voice speaks through you.